In Climate Watch, as temperatures around the world continue to rise, the risks related to heat waves are also increasing. Yesterday, the mayor of Freetown in Sierra Leone appointed Africa's first chief heat officer. She's tasked with raising awareness about heat waves and implementing cooling solutions. The World Meteorological Organization predicts that by 2030, about 118 million Africans will be exposed to droughts, floods, and extreme heat. This could drastically decrease the continent's overall GDP. So here to discuss is Baughman McLeod. She's the director of the Adrian Arst-Rock Resilience Center, the organization spearheading the initiative. We are also joined by Eugenia Kargbo, Freetown's newly appointed first chief heat officer. Very interesting. Thank you for joining us this morning, ladies. Eugenia, I want to start with you. Congratulations, first off, on being the first person appointed to this sort of position in Africa. Before we get into your new role, I want to talk about the impact of extreme heat. When there are hurricanes, tornadoes, flooding gets a lot of media attention because partially it's really easy to cover with those video cameras, right? You can see the immediate impact on the population. Heat waves don't necessarily get the same coverage, but they are just as damaging and dangerous. Can you talk about the impact of extreme heat in West African countries, but also specifically in the city of Freetown?
Thank you very much. So climate change is something that we're currently battling with, and climate change is a global crisis affecting different countries all around the world, and most especially cities. And Freetown is no exception. Over the past 10 years, we've seen a dramatic change in weather patterns. We've seen flooding, heavy flooding. We've seen rising in sea level, and we've also experiencing high heat temperatures in the city. And this is affecting the lives of people in Freetown, but heat waves is causing stress and also causing a lot of is also affecting the cellular. We have a lot of people who are living in the informal settlement. At around 35% of the city's population live in informal settlement, and these people are mostly hit by extreme heat conditions. Most of them lives in houses that are not properly designed and do not have the finance to purchase cooling system. So these people are badly hit by heat waves. Our city also, Freetown is the capital city of Sierra Leone, definitely. And in Sierra Leone, 90% of the rural population depends on agriculture. And extreme heat waves is really, really causing a lot of issues to farmers in these areas. And this is affecting the city. We're witnessing massive rural urban migration. We now have increased rates in informal settlement to about 72 informal settlements, and this is affecting the city's resource and also our sanitation. These are some of the major crises that we are facing currently in Freetown with regards to heat waves. Freetown used to be a very cool city, but now we're experiencing heavy heat, especially during the afternoon hours, but even in the night. Currently, we're witnessing shorter raining season and longer dry season. And this is causing a lot of effect on the health and livelihood of people in Freetown.
That's a sort of a great explanation, particularly when it comes to the impact on a city. It's sort of out of cities, that's one issue, certainly when it comes to agriculture, finding water. But in a city, when you have a concentration of people with, informal housing, there's almost no place to go to get relief. Kathy, can you explain what your organization does and the City Champions for Heat Action Initiative, what that is, and why the focus on heat? I read somewhere that heat is called a silent killer, kind of like for what I had said initially, because, visually sometimes you can't see the impact, but it can be just as destructive as, a flood.
The Adrian Arst Rockefeller Foundation Resilience Center is focused on building human capacity for resilience in the face of climate change. And we've pledged to reach 1 billion people with resilient solutions by 2030. And heat is killing more people than any other climate-driven hazard. And up to 75% of people on the planet will be facing extreme heat waves by 2100. And so you're right, this hazard doesn't have the drama. It doesn't rip the roof off of your house. You don't see cars floating down streets. And it is quiet and insidious. And so we have focused on this. In fact, building all sorts of partners and policies and interventions and new ways to finance responding to heat as we try to tackle our greenhouse gas emissions, knowing that even if we do, we'll still be facing these temperatures for 30 years. So we're helping communities like Freetown put a very laser focus on this hazard. It's not just a health crisis, it's an economic crisis as well.
Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about something else. The Lancet, I think, just put out a report, the medical journal, about the impact of climate change on people's health, sort of the indirect impact. And I think people forget or are unaware of the way heat waves affect people's health. So it's not just about, we get it that if you're exposed to prolonged extreme heat, you could die. But then there's a quality of life issue. The long-term impacts on your health is something that we don't always acknowledge.
That's true. And as you called it, the silent killer, it quietly takes over your body and it slows you down. And when your income depends on how much you produce in a day, like someone who is in the agriculture sector, you don't get paid if you don't pick that fruit or vegetable. And it really takes a toll on your income and your health. And so we're also doing economic analyses in big cities around the world to understand that impact. But the health aspects are little seen, and they are things like slowing down your thinking or making mistakes with your hand-eye coordination at work. And people get hurt and people get killed.
Right. So Eugenia, when there is a heat wave where I live, the health department usually sort of lets people know. They open up cooling stations and warn people about how hot their houses can get. Even with all of that, people die, and this is in a big American city. It seems like your role as chief heat officer is more expansive than that. It's not just about telling people it's going to be really hot for the next few days. It's about sort of putting together long-term strategies so that people can sort of survive through these heat waves and to kind of cool down their areas. Can you tell me what your role is going to be? Like, what is the job?
Okay, so this is one of the challenges we face. When you talk about climate change, people always relate it to flooding, to drought, to landslide. It's very difficult, like people placing emphasis on heat. For example, in Sierra Leone, the weather is very hot, but then people will say like, "Oh, it's hot," but they're not relating that to climate change, and they're not relating that to something that is affecting their health. And so we really need to raise the awareness that heat is also causing severe health problems and environmental problems, but also we need to find the solution. So my role as the chief heat officer for Freetown, I will be working with communities, vulnerable communities, to raise awareness, but also I will be working with the FCC, the Freetown City Council, and the Mayor's Delivery Unit. There is a lot already going on in Freetown, and Freetown has taken a lead role in climate change actions. We're on a path to develop a climate action plan for Freetown, and currently we're planting 1 million trees. We are working on reforesting deforested areas in Freetown. We're creating green spaces out of illegal dump sites. We are also working with youth in vulnerable communities to provide green jobs and livelihood opportunities. So I will be working with a team here in town to kind of support them, but also to scale up the work that they're doing. I will also be working with the different stakeholders here in Freetown, the ministries, the agencies, the NGOs, local and international partner, to kind of sound the alarm, but also to kind of drive data collection and to also just bring out all its related issues in all what we're doing.
Oh, it's very,
Most
very interesting. Listen to
most importantly, I'll also be developing a heat plan for Freetown.
Kathy, before I let both of you ladies go, the mayor of Seville is the first elected official, Seville in Spain, first elected official to name and categorize heat waves in the same way, we do for hurricanes. Can you explain why this is actually a significant move? It may seem minor, but it's not.
You're right. It's a big move, and it puts heat waves on par with hurricanes. And as we know, they're killing more people, heat waves, than any other climate hazard. And it needs the brand, it needs the media attention, and it needs the actions that go with it so people can protect themselves. And we think that naming and categorizing heat waves will build the same culture of prevention and preparation that we have for hurricanes. And so we're so excited about that. And it will be a model for the rest of the world to inform people with action to protect themselves.
Yeah, let's hope so. Well, it's really interesting work that both of you are doing. I look forward to seeing how it all develops. Kathy Baughman McLeod and Eugenia Kargbo, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you want to learn more about climate change and how activists are bringing a sense of urgency to the issue, then be sure to check out the CBSN original Climate Generation. You can stream that anytime at cbsnews.com/environment.